Well, crypto prices are rallying, and it looks like crypto could become more accessible to more people as a U.S. court ruled in favor of crypto asset manager Grayscale in their lawsuit against the SEC, getting the company one step closer to ETF approval. But our next guest has been warning about the risks of crypto for quite some time. He's a co-author of New York Times best-selling book, Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. And of course, you'll recognize him as the former actor from the 2003 hit series, The OC, Ben McKenzie. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me. You know, you have kind of that instantly recognizable face, a nostalgic one for people who grew up with The OC. I'm sure you get this question all the time, but how did you go from that to falling down the rabbit hole on crypto and writing a book about it?
Boredom, COVID-induced boredom. The entertainment industry was on ice when COVID hit. I had a lot of time on my hands, and I started paying attention to the financial markets, really for the first time in my life. I have a degree in economics, and I saw all of these things that seemed somewhat inexplicable initially, meme stocks, crypto, NFTs, and I decided to do some research after a friend of mine suggested that I buy crypto. And after a few months of research, I thought, boy, this seems oddly, very suspicious. And so I told my friend, I really think you should pull your money out of crypto. But I kept going down the rabbit hole. I kept investigating, teamed up with the journalist, Jacob Silverman, and we spent the last 2 years investigating the industry. It's actually at least as bad as I feared, if not worse. Many of the actors in crypto are now facing criminal allegations, including Sam Bankman-Fried, who I interviewed, and Alex Mashinsky, CEO of a crypto company, Celsius. So it's been a pretty wild ride, but I have to say a lot of the things that I've been warning about for the last 2 years have proven true.
What part of crypto are you talking about? Because there's the currencies themselves, there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, then there are the middlemen that interject themselves, the Sam Bankman-Frieds, the exchanges, and then there's all kinds of other derivative plays that come out of that. Where are the anxieties that you have?
Sure. So first of all, economically speaking, these are not currencies because they don't do any of the three things that money is supposed to do. They're a poor medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value. They're more like investments, and that's what people are using them as. They're putting real money into them, hoping to make real money off of them through no work of their own. That's an investment contract under American law. But given a sort of a gray area that crypto found itself in, they haven't been properly classified. And so you'll see there's a lot of lawsuits flying around. But the investment contracts that are not regulated have a really poor history in this country and globally. The reason that we have federal securities laws, that we created them in the 1930s, is that we didn't have them in the 1920s. And the roaring 20s was a lot of fun, but the crash of 1929 led to the Great Depression and the need for federal securities laws. So I think what we're seeing now is the rubber hitting the road. All of these effectively unregistered, unlicensed securities are finally coming under scrutiny legally, and I don't think that they're going to stand up.
Well, the test you're referring to see if something is a security, one of the things that Bitcoin, let's just use Bitcoin as an example, that it struggles with is it's not centrally organized. So if you're a security, you need to do things like disclose, hold meetings. But if there's no central authority to do that, the challenge is, how do you do that?
Well, yes, and Bitcoin has been classified as a commodity for precisely that reason. The problem is, of course, that all of the other cryptocurrencies do have effectively issuers, right? These are real people behind these quote unquote currencies that are actually investments. And you see these coins. I mean, there are 20,000 of these cryptocurrencies out there, which is a pretty astonishing number if you thought of them as currencies. There are always people behind them. So I really think that we need to kind of look at the broad picture. The Howey test that you referred to is written extremely broadly for a reason, because it's supposed to apply to all sorts of investment schemes that people have come up with over the last 90 years. The courts are now going through this, and we'll see a lot of back and forth. Sometimes, the government will win, sometimes it will lose. But I think you'll see over time, as the legal process plays out, the rules will become codified, and a lot of these investment contracts, which really, it's unclear exactly what they're an investment in, will become classified as securities.
So I guess is it kind of how it's regulated that you have an issue with, or the very nature of it? There is a game-changing aspect, and again, I'll just use Bitcoin of this, that you can act trustlessly, but transparently as well. You've never been able to do that. We're still struggling to find out what that's applicable to. People are now using it as digital gold. But is it that premise, or just kind of how it's being put into practice and regulated, that you have an issue with?
All of it. So crypto is certainly trustless in the sense that you shouldn't trust it. But of course, trustless money is itself an oxymoron. Money is trust. We made it up. So creating a trustless money is like saying you want to create a governmentless government or a religionless religion. The words you're searching for are anarchy and cult. You simply cannot create a money that is trustless. What crypto advocates mean when they say it's trustless, is that you can trust the code. But of course, code does not fall from the sky. People write code, sometimes imperfectly, sometimes with malice. And we see, for example, with Sam Bankman-Fried, one of the things that he's alleged to have done is to instruct one of his lieutenants to change a single number in millions of lines of code in order to create a secret backdoor where he could effectively steal his customers' money. So when you say trustless or trust the code, that's what you mean. Well,
that was in his exchange. He did not actually alter the code of the currencies themselves, which has not been done. These are problems with sort of middlemen that get involved. And I'm curious about the conversations you had with SBF. Was it at a time where he was still lauded as a hero? And were you skeptical of that narrative in speaking with him? Were there red flags for you before it was sort of mainstream?
Yeah, of course. I mean, one of the other myths of cryptocurrency is that it's decentralized. Cryptocurrency, the actual functional market, is heavily centralized. The exchange, the volume runs through the exchanges, most of which are headquartered overseas, like FTX was, like Binance, the current biggest exchange in the world is. And so another myth of crypto is that it is decentralized. It's in fact heavily centralized. When it comes to Sam, yeah, I interviewed him last summer in July of last year. He was being lauded as the JP Morgan of crypto at the time. He was going to clean up this, regrettably fraudulent industry, and he was going to make it palatable to the American public. And he was spending a lot of time on Capitol Hill trying to convince lawmakers and regulators that FTX specifically could be trusted. Of course, just 4 or 5 months later, he was arrested and charged with one of the biggest financial frauds in American history, according to the SDNY. So when I sat down with him, I had a lot of questions. There were red flags in abundance. When you look at the book and you read the book, you'll see many of the red flags of Ponzi schemes and fraudulent schemes were triggered when it came to FTX and Alameda.